All right, there we go. Deputy Mayor here, just in time. I want to welcome everybody to today's meeting of Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee. We have a couple of presentations on for today, and we're ready to get going here. So first of all, I'll start with a call to order and land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located on Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. I just want to confirm that there is quorum. We had regrets from Councillor Smith, but we do have quorum. We'll start with approval of the minutes from November 17th, 2022. So moved by Councillor Blackburn and seconded by Deputy Mayor Austin. Are there any errors or omissions? Nope. Okay, well then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any contrary minded? Nope, then that is approved. Next, we'll go to approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Are there any additions or deletions?
There have been no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Excellent. Then we'll move on to business arising out of the minutes. I have none. Call for declaration of conflict of interests. Any conflict of interests? There are none. Motions of reconsideration, none. Motions of rescission, none. Consideration of deferred business, none. Notices of tabled matters, none. Correspondence, petition, and delegations. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence received?
No correspondence or petitions have been received from the clerk's office.
Okay, are there any petitions to be presented?
No petitions from the clerk's office.
Okay, so we get to move right into our presentations. Today we have a presentation about the Dartmouth Waterfront Open Space Plan, and we have a whole ensemble of presenters. Usually we don't have more than two, but there was a request from the group that they all have a coordinated presentation, I'm told, and so I'm looking forward to this this exciting presentation. Oh.
Big family in Dartmouth, but Madam Chair, that's why.
Okay, we'll hand it over to you.
So thank you very much. It is a coordinated presentation, and we all are on timed slides, so we'll work through quickly. I am Sandra McKenzie. I am the chair of Alderney Landing, and I'm here with board members and with our partners to talk about an exciting opportunity, we think, to do an open space plan for the Dartmouth waterfront. So through the presentation, we're going to talk about what the collective opportunity is, and each of our partners are going to speak to that. But in terms of, I'm sorry, Pete, I'm going to move down to this.
The presentation isn't up online.
Oh, sorry. I didn't notice. So we're going to have each of these people speak, and then we'll comment. And I just want to draw your attention to the notion of collective impact. And collective impact is when you bring a lot of different activities, thoughts, dreams together, and you can see that a lot of things can be moving at separate times, but collective impact is when you come together and you actually can achieve things positively. So that's the whole point of bringing us together, to be able to speak to this opportunity today, and hopefully we're going to leave with a plan that actually brings things into alignment and advances things positively. So I'm going to turn it over to the next actually slide. I'm going to speak to this. These are the partners that are here today represent sort of the spaces that are there. We're going to talk about opportunities for crews. We're going to talk about opportunities for, we're in the process right now of reimagining Alderney Landing into the next 25 years. There's opportunities for the Downtown Dartmouth Business Commission, and then future land opportunities with the province and with the city. So there's an opportunity to take a look at how all of these things can come together for the public and for the betterment of the Dartmouth waterfront. And I'm going to turn it over to Gord Gamble, the chair of the Facility Committee for Alderney Landing, to take it from here.
Great, thank you, Sandra. Thank you, councillors. And so Alderney Landing is the community and cultural hub located in the heart of the waterfront in Dartmouth. A tremendous facility that houses a very vibrant local farmers market, the very well-utilized community theater, and an art gallery that profiles local artisans. It is managed under tremendous leadership by our slide advancer today, Bea McGregor to my right. Bea and her leadership team bring over 600 events annually to the waterfront, welcoming 350,000 people annually, and hit those numbers even through COVID in many ways, so an amazing group. As a board, we engaged into a strategic planning process back in 2018, 2019. And really because our facility, our 25-year-old facility now is at max capacity. The market, the gallery, and the theater could all use an expansion and update to meet the programming demands of the public. We also house permanent retailers, everything from an amazing seafood vendor to the NSLC. And across the board, every commercial vendor that is there has come to us asking for additional commercial space. And we're in the envious position of having a waiting list of other local vendors that would love to have permanent space at our facility. And we also have a tremendous outdoor theater venue that can host concerts and is a tremendous waterfront experience for people that attend. Today, with the current egress, we're limited to hosting about 8,500 people. With proper egress, we know that could grow to about 15,000 people. So the slide just summarized a couple of the key points that came from over 1,100 residents who we engaged in the strategic planning process, whether the community leaders, residents, partners, stakeholders. So the comprehensive strategic plan really led our board to stand up a facilities committee to lead the direction for the Alderney Landing expansion. But quite quickly, we realized that to do an expansion of Alderney properly, we needed to engage all the stakeholders along the Dartmouth waterfront. From the port, as Sandra said, is from the port, the private developers. Of course, HRM is the largest landowner on the Dartmouth waterfront. We engage what was then Develop Nova Scotia, now Build Nova Scotia. They have land on the waterfront, but they also bring tremendous waterfront development expertise to the table as well. So our committee has been involved over the last year and a half, getting additional community engagement and also political engagement. And I can tell you that consistently, the messaging we're hearing is it's time. It's time for the Dartmouth waterfront to have a connected, pedestrian-driven waterfront, and we're here to lead that process. And here's the kicker. We bring money to the table, which is unique. Through the foresight of community leaders back 20 years ago, the Alderney Association was formed and is the benefactor of the sale of P3 schools and a correctional facility. So we have over $4 million that we want to bring, and more importantly, we want to leverage to this opportunity. And we're confident that with the other stakeholders, our leverage opportunities only grow. So whether it's at 3 levels of government or ACOA or other community organizations, green building opportunities, there's lots of opportunities to grow that funding. And speaking of money, our board also commissioned last year a economic and social impact report done by Mike Foster from CanMec Economics, and he brought in Fred Morley from Rising Tide Economics. And as you can see, any investment in the downtown waterfront pays significant dividends. The summary of their report in the slide here shows that over $46 million is generated through the activities associated with Alderney Landing, and then you have spin-off spending of another approximately $28 million in the local market, bringing the contribution to the local economic impact in excess of $74 million annually. So an investment in the waterfront is a good economic investment. And with that, I will turn it over to Captain Gray.
Thank you very much. The Port of Halifax, as I think many of you are aware, is a marquee port for cruising in Atlantic Canada. And without growth in Halifax, there is no growth in cruising across Atlantic Canada. So therefore, investment in infrastructure and growth is paramount. And we're not seeing it slow down. Despite COVID, it's coming back strong, and we expect to reach our capacity in infrastructure in 2024. So introducing new infrastructure, the port's always been committed to proper engagement and community consultation on the way we're going to go forward on our projects. And collaboration with other stakeholders in infrastructure has always been a platform for me on how we get meaningful engagement with community. Collaborative projects mean a win-win for all parties on the way we go forward. So, as I said, demand is increasing, and we expect in the next 3 to 4 years we can address the short-term demand through things like lightering, but ultimately we need to get infrastructure. Dartmouth, through our work in our 50-year plan, sits as the most ideal location for the expansion of Crew, the new infrastructure. 200 calls a year, 350,000 passengers a year coming up. So, you know, it's big, and we expect it to grow well into the future. To get new facilities, well, there's a share of economic opportunity there. You know, at the moment it's all centred in the Halifax Business District. Here is an opportunity as Cruise grows and developing something that we can share that economic development across both sides of the harbour, and everyone gets a win and a share of that. So, you know, we're seeing that cruise industry wants Halifax, and they want a vibrant environment around them. So a collaborative project, we believe, works really well. And I'll pass to my colleagues.
Yes, so I guess this is my slide. I'm Tim Rasusko with the Downtown Dartmouth Business Commission. Downtown Dartmouth has experienced incredible growth over the past 10 years. It's where people want to gather, and more importantly, it's a neighborhood where people want to live. Our community is enthusiastic with the growth of downtown Dartmouth, the development of new housing, new businesses, and the revitalization of many of the older buildings. The clear and consistent direction that our business owners and residents have given to me over the years has been to maintain the character and sense of community at downtown Dartmouth, to basically not mess it up. The population and corresponding economic growth that we anticipate will make our businesses more prosperous, support our institutions, make our municipal services like the buses and ferries more sustainable, and attract more amenities to our district. A redeveloped Dartmouth waterfront will assist in this. The waterfront is already home to our farmers market, the library, theatre, events plaza, parkland, and our ferry. We see the development of a cruise ship terminal on the waterfront as an opportunity to support the growth of our small business community and to attract amenities to the waterfront that will enhance the lives of our residents and make our community more attractive to visitors. Now I'm going to pass it back over to Sandra. Oh, no.
You're gonna, yeah.
Oh, yes. So part of that residential growth is Kings Wharf, and the possibility of looking at the waterfront as a way that we can help the growth both there at Kings Wharf, maybe find a way to find an egress into Kings Wharf, as well as open up residential growth in the Dartmouth Cove area. So it's very comprehensive. It goes beyond the parkland and the waterfront, the Alderney and the cruise, to be a complete plan right down to Dartmouth Cove. Now it's Sandra. I jumped a little quick.
So I want to talk a little bit about timing and why has this partnership been formed the way that it has? Well, we're very interested in the Kings Wharf egress because we are the largest open space for, at Alderney Landing, the largest open space for events on the waterfront. We can hold 15,000 people. We're limited to 8,500 people because we don't have a second egress. So if there was a way to join up the egress from Kings Wharf and to also benefit Alderney Landing in some type of a linear park, which would require HRM working together, the Francis Ferris and that development, and Alderney Landing, and of course it benefits downtown Dartmouth. That timing is on the table now. We wanted to make sure that we came in while you were thinking about those decisions. Also, you know, that's moving forward. That's some of those arrows that we want to make sure they all start to come into alignment. The Alderney expansion and our ability, excuse me, our Alderney expansion and our ability to go out and leverage the money can't just be for Alderney. We need to think about what Alderney facility is going to look like into the future with the opportunity for the growth right along the public access all along the waterfront. And just to build on the port cruise. So we're going to go to the next slide. You can see where the Alderney comes together, and the request is that HRM staff be directed to work with external partners, the Port of Halifax, Alderney Landing, Kings Wharf, downtown Dartmouth, and others as identified to develop an open space plan for Dartmouth waterfront that creates a public space that is connected, pedestrian-focused, and incorporates growth and development opportunities. Thank you. We're happy to take questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, bravo. That was, well done, well done. Collective impact, collective presentation. You guys are obviously on the ball here. It's very good to see. So let's see what the speakers list is here. We have Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, and thank you to the whole Dartmouth family for coming in today to present. And it's lovely to see you. It's a unique thing. Usually, when most presentations from groups here, and it's just the nature of the work and everything. Usually, we have folks coming here asking us for money, or it's pretty rare where folks are coming in saying we want to be a partner with you, and we have money to put on the table to help make all this work between you and the port. So I think that's special. I mean, I think the challenge in Dartmouth has always been like, the Dartmouth side, sometimes folks look across at the Halifax side and, well, why can't we have that on our waterfront? Why has it always been neglected? And, we never had a Crown Corporation whose entire mission was just waterfront development. The ownership has been fractured. And, the ownership has been fractured, and the other piece of it is, it's basically been, for the most part, through history, a municipal project more so than anything else. And so I think this idea, this collective action where everyone is now kind of coming into alignment, I think the timing is very much right when you think about Alderney reinvesting, the challenges with the port, Kings Wharf, downtown Dartmouth, and the work that HRM's doing that hopefully we'll be able to talk more about soon in the future on that. It is an opportunity and a challenge, though, at the same time, right? So, there's lots of opportunity here, but if we get it wrong, there's lots of potential for pitfall. So, when I think about what our role we should have in this, I think this is very clear-cut a municipal planning type role. We're the only ones that can take all these disparate interests and be the common denominator amongst them. So, I'll flip it over to colleagues in case anyone else has any questions, but I'll come back and I'm happy to move the motion on this requesting a staff report. Thank you.
Councillor Mason.
Well, I wasn't sure I was going to speak, but then I saw no one else was on the list, so I have to come on now so that Sam can come back in and make your motion. So you're welcome.
You're speaking slowly.
But very slowly while he writes it out. I just wanted, normally I would say at a point like this, and I do have a question, something like, this is not about redistributing what's already there, it's about growing what we have, right? But in this case, it is actually a little bit about redistributing what's there, because what I'm hearing increasingly from the waterfront in Halifax is that when we have 5 cruise ships in, and Alan knows where I'm going, and Sarah knows, it's too busy. We have too many people. I would love to get 2 cruise ships over in Dartmouth. There is no hesitation from downtown because we are at capacity right now and we can be over capacity. Because the other thing that's been interesting, and Dartmouth should be aware of this too as you do your planning, is as we've made these investments and the province has made these investments and we've seen the build out of the waterfront, more locals want to go too. So we now have days in June where people are like, wow, are there cruise ships in? It's like, no, it's just us. It's just us there and it's full and it feels very busy. So I strongly support this. I see this as very complimentary. My question is, and I think this is to Alan as much as anybody, is what kind of growth do you see as the marquee port and how does this support the other ports? Because I know you didn't have time to really get into that, but I know from being on the Port Liaison Committee that it's essential that Halifax be there for all the other ports in Atlantic Canada.
Councillor. We are there is no cruise in Atlantic Canada unless Halifax takes the large majority of the vessels. So, as we said, it's 250 vessels predicted with 350,000 passengers in the near term. We ultimately believe we'll get to 1 million passengers a year through Halifax. So, you're right, there's partly about growth, but it's partly about redistribution. Large volumes of buses, large volumes of people. So how do we distribute that? And the feedback from the cruise industry is that it's actually highly marketable. One of the problems with the large volumes is getting to Peggy's Cove. you can get, or to the, you can get to Peggy's Cove this side, but you can't get down into the Annapolis Valley. You get one trip a day. If they would operate at a Dartmouth, they could get 2 rotations a day, those sorts of things. So they can improve their cruise flow, and people want to walk different spaces. So I think whilst it helps us, there's also the cruise sort of demands vibrant activity. So it sort of also puts the pressure on the Dartmouth side to step up and produce something really fancy that supports. So they both complement each other. And if we do that, then we continue to support cruise in Atlantic Canada. If I stop investing, we will see the removal of cruise across Atlantic Canada. And we see in Bar Harbour, the council there made a decision to restrict the volume of cruise ships. There's now injunctions and things like that going on, but they're down from somewhere near 90,000 passengers in a season down to 5,000 passengers. So a significant economic impact on the community. So we have to balance the community needs on cruise ships coming, but we also need to be able to facilitate the economic output across the whole of Atlantic Canada.
Thank you. And B will laugh when I say this with my former hat on. I'm just imagining what I could have done with 15,000 capacity. So strong support for all of this. Excellent to hear this is moving forward. Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you. Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Outstanding. It truly is it's an exciting time in HRM, and it's an exciting time in Dartmouth. I mean, I've been so excited about hearing about the reimagining of Alderney Landing, and it's not about just Alderney Landing colleagues, it's about all of the downtown on both sides, the impact. My question is to Captain Gray, on this, can you tell us where it stands right now, where this, the possibility of looking at the cruise business to be on the Dartmouth side? I mean, what's in front of you right now to make that decision so that we're more solid in what the next steps are?
Yeah, so for us to move forward, we need to get a firm location, and we don't own land in the Dartmouth side, so we can't just go over and build a berth in Dartmouth and expand cruise. So we need the collaboration of HRM and other partners to be able to find a suitable location. There had been some previous work done, and my review of that, I wasn't comfortable with where that was. And when we spoke with Alderney Landing Board, there was a greater opportunity to reimagine that area and have cruise as a facilitator in it, as opposed to just a large object just stamped in a place because that was the only place left. So we have that previous planning, we have consultation with the cruise industries, we understand their demand, we understand their desire. They want to go to Dartmouth if there's something there for them, so that's the point. So combining it in this collaboration means the cruise industry is supportive. We've identified areas of funding that can support us, but again, there has to be the incentive for them to invest. For us to get into detailed design work, we really need that consultation with partners and community to say, well, what could this look like, and how could we make it work with low impact but lots of benefit. So we just need commitment to go to that next stage.
Once you're at the next stage, the commitment, even further down the road, you've actually agreed upon a location. What's the time frame? What's the length of time does that take to actually be able to welcome the first cruise ship there once that's been identified?
Once we've got into the design, you're talking 3 to 4 years to build. We don't expect that this is going to be a large infrastructure build for the cruise. It's probably more skeletal in nature. The key for us will be how do we turn buses and things like that. So do we need a little bit of land or whatever? But the infrastructure I don't think is going to be difficult. So.
Good. Thanks, Captain. Appreciate it. Go ahead. Yep.
I'd just like to add to Captain Gray's point to say that the opportunity that Captain Gray and the cruise brings to Dartmouth is to imagine that infrastructure also, because there's not cruise ships there every day of the year. In fact, it's more open than it is used by cruise ships. So there's an opportunity for public space and to think about that as a public access to it, to add to the Dartmouth waterfront in a way that we wouldn't if we were independently all trying to move the projects forward.
Right. Yeah. a big fiddle, you're suggesting? I think that's already taken by Cape Breton, but we'll come up. Maybe it's a big, I think Tim's got a big swan in his garage, or a big goose, sorry, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before Councillor Austin puts his motion on the floor, I just had a couple of comments too and questions. And, I mentioned it before about I love the presentation at the beginning about this idea of collective impact. And, that's really what we need to come to the table to make a successful project. And then, just listening to this discussion, particularly around the cruise, for the cruise aspect to be successful, looking at how, those buses and the destination and where people need to go. And I know downtown Dartmouth in and of itself, has all the right ingredients to be an amazing attraction and provide an amazing visitor experience. But in going out, you mentioned Peggy's Cove. I'm just going to talk about that for 2 seconds. When you look at Peggy's Cove, that whole experience around the loop, there's been zero investment there. And so, it would be kind of interesting to look at how, with the cruise industry and bringing in more cruise passengers and needing to increase that capacity, how we can expand on that. But also about, I'm also going to put a little plug in here for Discover Halifax and their integrated regional tourism master plan, right? And looking at how we develop more destinations within HRM. So you mentioned the Valley, but I'm also thinking about the 100 Wild Islands. I'm thinking about Hubbard's, right? So when we look at kind of that collaborative, collective impact piece, it's Dartmouth, it's the cruise ships, and then looking at those external partners as well. I think there's loads of opportunity. You mentioned in the presentation the increasing this to up to 1 million passengers. Right now, I think you said 350,000, so that's more than doubling, it's like tripling what we currently have. So, if that is a reality, that's going to take some pretty serious planning to be able to accommodate that in a way which ensures that, I think, the city is still for other visitors and for the people who live here, and how we make that all work. I think that's a really serious consideration, because I will say that, many people now, when there's cruise ships in or big things going on the waterfront, it's, lots of people are avoiding the downtown. So how do we make this work for everybody, including the small businesses and the people who live in Dartmouth? The emergency access piece, so there is a motion already about that, right? That's being looked into. That's my recollection. So, I look forward to being able to share that too with this group when that comes forward, because I can see how important it is. So on that, and that's really all I have to say. So I'm going to pass it back to Deputy Mayor, who, if he's ready, has a motion.
I do, and you sparked just one comment too. I think when we think about cruise, it's really kind of doubling it, because the way I understand it from talking to the folks up here, you might have that same boat that would normally call on us once, would stop in twice, and one time they might be on the Halifax side, the next time they're on the Dartmouth side, so you get an excursion. Maybe they're going down to Fisherman's Cove in Eastern Passage, or out to the Black Cultural Center, or any number of things on the Dartmouth side that normally don't get any kind of cruise visitors. But then when they're back through, they're on the Halifax side, and so we're getting that same passenger. The economic benefit's twofold, right? We can try and empty their pockets twice if we miss the first time. So I do have a motion.
She'll reflect that in a minute.
Yeah. So I move that the community planning, I'm reading my notes rather than the thing I sent around. So I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee request a staff report on the Halifax Regional Municipality developing an open spaces plan for the Dartmouth waterfront in partnership with the Port of Halifax, Alderney Landing, Kings Wharf, downtown Dartmouth, and other stakeholders to create a public space that is connected, pedestrian focused, and incorporates growth and development opportunities.
Seconded by Councillor Blackburn. All those in favor?
Question about it.
Oh, You do, sorry. There we, another question for you. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is timing on this, though. So I think the timing is critical. How quickly can a staff report such as this take, and when could we expect it to come back? I'm looking at Maggie on it. A couple of weeks?
Writing it right now.
That's right, yeah.
Through you,
Whatever
through the
Dartmouth
chair,
wants, she wrote, and that's it, yeah.
through the chair to the councillor. I think what the motion provides us is sort of direction to staff to engage in a deeper way with this group. And so the timing would depend a little bit on sort of how the proposal shapes up over time. I know Eric Lusick has been involved, so, you know, we have to gauge it obviously against other priorities. I can't give you a sort of firm timeline, but I think the motion does sort of give us that direction to engage as staff. So that's really
Yeah,
what we're,
and my
looking
comment, I
for.
wasn't saying we need it next month, but my comment's more about, I think timing is critical. We have momentum now, there's a window of opportunity now, and especially with the Kings Wharf piece, we've got to make some decisions sooner than later. That's my only reason to bring it up. Thank you, Maggie.
All right, Councillor Austin.
I get to speak again since we're on a motion. Just to Councillor Mancini's point, I mean, I think there's a couple things at play. I mean, we have our immediate opportunity, and we have work that HRM is doing. This is kind of gathering up all the threads, right? Because some of the work we're doing and some of the work that other folks are doing is not all necessarily tied together. And, you know, some of it is focused on just kind of one kind of piece of the puzzle. And so I don't think we necessarily need to slow down on some of the essential stuff, like, you know, that decision that's pending about Kings Wharf. Do we do that second access? I mean, my motion requesting that we connect Ferry Terminal Park to Kings Wharf is a public motion, so I can talk about that one. You know, I don't think that work necessarily stops or slows down based on this, but what has not been inherent in that motion is, well, what does that mean in terms of public space? What is the actual, you know, public space sort of plan that comes with that piece? And so that's really, you know, one of the big chunks that's kind of missing in the disparate threads, not without even touching on the cruise piece. So I think the work is complementary, and I don't think we necessarily have to, you know, put a hold on some of the really pressing decisions that are needed, like sooner rather than later. Thank you.
All right, sorry, that should have been Deputy Mayor. I see no more speakers on the list, so call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have a presentation, item 10.3.2, Halifax Rugby Football Club. And I'd like to welcome Madison Dennison and Anthony Black. Welcome.
Yeah, John is John is with the Halifax Tars, who are our longtime friends and rivals.
Right.
Yeah. No, John has been supportive of the project. So.
Yeah. He's not too far removed.
Right. So I welcome you to start your presentation. Do you have any slides?
Yes, we do.
Peter? Are they ready to go?
Yes, they are.
Yep. Okay, you've got 10 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Assuming that's going to turn, oh, it's actually already on. So thank you very much, councillors, for having us here today. I'm really excited to actually present this. It's been kind of a pipe dream, I think, for our community and club for decades now. My name is Madison Dennison. I've been a member of Halifax RFC since 2001. I started playing when I was 16 years old, and I've been involved with the club in various levels ever since. I'm joined by Anthony, who actually started longer ago than that, so we've got some legacy here with the club. And I'd also like to say, actually, it's amazing following on that presentation from the Dartmouth Waterfront, because despite our presentation and project being much more modest, we share actually a lot of similar features. Collective impact and a strategy of collaboration is essential to our approach. And actually, in terms of long-term planning, we're coming to the table with a little bit of money, too. So what we're actually looking to kind of work together on is establishing the feasibility of a clubhouse facility at the east end of the sports field at Gorgebrook Park that would contain public washrooms that have access from the playground, basketball court, tennis court side of the park there, change rooms and shower facilities for athletes playing sports on the field, community space for social gatherings, either during sporting events or tournaments or general community gatherings. We've heard interest for birthday parties and whatnot to actually happen at a facility like this because there's not that many recreational facilities available in that area. A viewing deck to be able to actually watch games, and of course equipment storage so we're not loading up all of our gear into our cars every single day, and we're hearing that from other park users as well. So what we're asking for from you today is to actually direct HRM staff to collaborate with us on community engagement and consultation to ensure that we're properly representing all of the relevant stakeholders, both the core park users, but of course the residents of the area as well. And then to conduct some project scoping and planning with us so we understand the full implications of a project such as this, and then more kind of tacitly support for the project going forward beyond that initial phase. So with the time I have today, quickly go a bit through who we are as a community, because many of you don't probably know depth of the rugby community, maybe other than who John Gillis is, the alignment of the project, and then the specifics of the clubhouse itself. So Halifax RFC is actually the oldest rugby club in Nova Scotia. We have actually history well beyond 1958. We were part of the Wanderers Amateur Athletic Club before that, and as that actually wound down in the 50s, we kind of grew out of its ashes. We also have the longest running women's rugby program. It's been actually operating for 20 years now. And that's actually at the heart of our community because we are actually an inclusive, welcoming, diverse rugby club right from the start. This is a great example. As a kind of highlight of who we are, I'll show a few of our members throughout the presentation. But Leona was one of the founding members of that women's team back in the early 2000s, and her daughter Maggie's playing for the club today. And we're proud to say we actually have about a dozen multi-generational members who are active at both kind of parent and child right at the moment. While this project is focused right in the south end of Halifax, and yes, that is our home field, our members are from all across the HRM, so we wanted to make sure that was clear that we're not a south end club. We are the only downtown club now at the moment, but we want to make sure that we grow that presence. And actually being both distributed across the HRM but a downtown club gives us a great opportunity to actually grow the population density of Halifax because we've actually engaged a lot of new Canadians that I'll highlight in the next couple slides too. But before that, focusing on our values is really important. Come as the most welcoming rugby club in Nova Scotia. That's our kind of mission, and we're inclusive, diverse, and obviously focusing on that. And that includes our rookie rugby program, which actually welcomes athletes from ages 4 to 13. And then it's had great success in growing over the years, and we look forward to actually growing that program substantially into the future. And our juniors program offers opportunities to get into contact rugby for individuals kind of 14, 15, 16, all the way through up to whether they're ready to play senior rugby. So in terms of actually numbers, our club currently has 183 registered participants, and that includes the full contact players, non-contact players, which is both those minis, but also we have some adult programming for non-contact to actually help bring people into athletics and into the community. And that looks like the Pride Rugby program we run, but also actually we operate in flag leagues. Actually, our Winter Flag League just wrapped, and we saw some great participation from people that weren't interested in playing contact rugby anymore in their career, but still wanted to be part of that community. And to give you a bit broader scope, our social media presence, we have some closed groups with well over 500 members because of that larger alumni. So not just registered active members would be kind of beneficiaries and direct participants in this. For specific programs, went through some of those, but at the senior level, we currently actually operate 2 men's teams in Division 1 and Division 2, as well as a women's team, and then the junior, rookie, and Pride programs I mentioned. The Pride program is a great example of how inclusive our club is. We offer, it's a non-contact, any gender participation, and it's great for introducing and reintroducing athletes into the sport and the community who didn't necessarily feel welcomed for whatever personal reason. And that diversity extends into kind of ability. We've had great representation from individuals like Miles, who's on the autism spectrum, and has been really proud about how his involvement in sport has actually benefited him. And he's very vocal on social media, so feel free to give him a follow. And so obviously community is really central to a lot of this. But mentioning before about new Canadians coming, I think this is really central to kind of our alignment with Halifax as the population is growing through immigration. We've seen tremendous attachment of new Canadians into rugby because they come from rugby-loving nations and don't necessarily actually know anyone in the local community or even the local language. Taps just became a Canadian citizen last year. He's been playing with us for 5. Fabrizio actually joined our club without being able to speak a lot of English, but he came out and watched a few practices and we pulled him in, and before long he was a member. And Yoshi's story is amazing. He was a Japanese student here who actually admitted to us really early on that he had planned to go to Vancouver or Toronto because he didn't find a community here until he started playing rugby. So specifically why a clubhouse? As I mentioned, I mean, public washrooms and changing rooms, sports side there by the field would be very nice. Equipment storage so we don't have to actually, fill up my garage at home with all of our gear. And this was really driven home by one of our great members, Emma Taylor, who's played rugby all around the world, represented Canada, I think 18 times now. And she really came back from playing in England saying, we need a clubhouse. We've existed for 65 years. We want to exist for 65 more. We want to grow our presence in the community. And so kind of following from her leadership, we've kind of embarked in this journey. And so our vision specifically would be for that facility to be constructed at the east end of that sports field, central to all of Gorgebrook Park, and really driving the Gorgebrook Park plan forward by implementing the public washrooms, accessibility there to all park users. And that placement is also great for all the other park users, whether that's the softball field, tennis courts, basketball courts, or the lacrosse and ball hockey. And so all of those are potential users of the facility, and we look at this to be very collaborative right from the start. We've had some great meetings with Lewis Brill from the Halifax Minor Ball Hockey League. He came on as a very, very strong supporter, viewing this as an opportunity for him to actually grow what they're doing with youth ball hockey in Gorgebrook Park. They've got about 200 kids playing ball hockey now, and they don't have a great facility. They've got some porta potties there, but they don't have anywhere to go for change rooms, for bathrooms. Parents don't have anywhere to congregate other than just on the hill, and he thinks this would be a way to potentially grow that. And we'd imagine some great community with opportunities. We envisioned actually in the winter, when obviously we weren't playing on the sports field, being able to have hot chocolate days for people sledding on the hill. There's all kinds of great opportunities for a community space like this. So the project values we're looking at is really community development, sustainability, both operationally and environmentally, inclusivity, obviously, and respect for our neighborhood. And then core to all of that is accessibility. So I mentioned how it aligns with a few high-level strategies of the city, but it aligns with a lot of very specific tactics also. We're looking at the Community Facility Master Plan 2, accessibility, universal design, ensuring inclusivity, developing healthy citizens, attracting and retaining new Canadians, partnerships to build capacity, and promoting diversity. In the Green Network Plan, it's explicitly cited to incorporate year-round recreational infrastructure, enhance social gathering space in municipal open spaces. And of course, in the washroom and drinking fountain strategy, Gorgebrook Park's explicitly identified as a high-need park for a public washroom, which is reiterated in the Gorgebrook Park plan itself, that the lack of public accessible washrooms and drinking water prevent that park to truly be a destination. We think this can all be done within a few-year time span. This year, we're really focused on that community engagement, understanding kind of the full collective impact of a project like this, and we'd like to work with HRM staff in doing so. So conducting that public consultation, moving into actually planning and site design, with hoping to actually construct or start construction in 2024, and envisioning a grand opening for season kickoff in 2025. In addition to that local community and stakeholders of Gorgebrook Park, we've also reached out and engaged with Rugby Nova Scotia, Rugby Canada, and also international representatives. I actually sit on the board of trustees for International Gay Rugby based out of England and Wales, and they've offered tremendous support, as would be actually the only inclusive rugby club east of Montreal in Canada. So once again, we're today just asking for staff engagement to work with us on community consultations and project scoping and planning to fully understand both the opportunity and the actual scale of what we're looking to do. We do have actually money held in reserve from a previous attempt to establish a clubhouse at the Wanderers grounds about 15 years ago, and our community really came together for that, and that money's been held in trust until we were ready to actually establish a clubhouse. So we're not coming at this with empty pockets. So thank you very much. I'd love to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for that great presentation. I have on the list, starting with Councillor Tim Elhit.
Thank you. Is Way on the committee? Because he might want to put the okay. All right, I don't need to put the motion on if somebody else wants to. I just had a couple of questions. As you went through the presentation, you answered some of my, and thank you for the presentation, you answered some of my questions because these things can escalate into millions of dollars very quickly. And I wanted to find out about other user groups numbers. So you're going to have that information. I'm absolutely fine with what you're asking for today and asking staff to help with this. But it's going to have to be something, you know, you look at what happened at the Oval, which is a great idea, and suddenly escalated into many millions of dollars to build a plaza and whatnot. Not saying that isn't necessary, and maybe Way will speak to that at some point with the overall vision and what you want is regular year-round use of this to justify the cost, but also take advantage of the facility. I was intrigued, having a daughter that played for the Celtics, played for CPA, and I spent more time with her and her friends in the emergency room and about cuts and bruises and whatnot. How does one play non-contact rugby? I have to ask that as somebody who thankfully got their daughter to become more interested in volleyball, but that's right.
I won't enumerate my injuries. Non-contact rugby tends to happen in two forms. One is touch rugby, simply, and flag rugby. Both of those are non-contact. Also, we have non-contact players who just come out and train for their general fitness. And I'll just tell a quick story. We had two guys who joined the club over the winter and started to play flag rugby with us. They're both doctors. One of them is from South Africa. He's a surgeon. The other is from England, and he's a family doctor. And they both rugby-loving nations, and they didn't know each other prior. They met each other and got talking, and Richard, the South African doctor, said, my brother-in-law, I'm trying to convince him to move to Halifax. He's a family doctor, but he won't listen to me. He told this story to the family doctor from England. He said, will you talk to him and tell him that, we found this club. And so I think that this brother-in-law family doctor is going to move to Nova Scotia.
Oh, there you go.
And first of all, the club was kind of the nexus around which this happened, but also he's going to be part of our club.
Oh, that's
And those guys, I guess I bring that up because they're both non-contact players. We have a surgeon. I don't know how John Gillis does it, but this surgeon needs his hands, so he's not going to play contact rugby, but he's going to be involved in our club.
Well, that's fabulous. My daughter played, as I mentioned, our youngest daughter played, and this is a true story that the Cobequid emergency room in Sackville would find out when the games were coming because there was always this spike in injuries. And when they play at that level, as she got older, the university and the private, the older clubs and whatnot, you actually learn how to play. And if you know how to play properly, you don't get as injured. But the ones who are learning to play at the high school level and whatnot, oh boy, the injuries. But anyway, no, listen, good luck with this, and I just wanted to, we're going to have to, I always tell people to come forward with ideas that's the more multi-purpose, the better when it comes to making sure that they get traction for the ask and the usage of it, because these things tend to escalate in cost very quickly. But thank you for the presentation, and I'll certainly be supporting any motion that comes forward. So. Thank you. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, How's it going? Great presentation. Jealous of your graphic design skills on the actual PowerPoint itself. Excellent. I wanted to flag, I do have a question, but I wanted to flag for council before we get to that. Another key piece here is one of the reasons that this is very high on the washroom strategy as a site for public washrooms is because that is one of the peninsula's fully accessible playgrounds there. That was renovated substantially around, I guess it was 3 years ago now, when they started having children in wheelchairs at English Street School right next door. And so it's also a destination for daycare. So I actually get from a completely different group of people a lot is it's really hard if you're there with the daycare to get the kids all touching the rope and then go crossing and using the St. Mary's Atrium washrooms or whatever. That's not the intention. So we already have a commitment to put money into there, and potentially there's a magnifier with this. And I know we have 2 porta potties on the field, and if you've never been to Gorsebrook, even if you go on a busy day, it's hard to tell how busy it is because the way it's landscaped, it used to be a golf course 60, 70 years ago. And so there's the soccer rugby field, there is the hockey lacrosse box, there are 2 baseball fields, the tennis courts and the basketball, and you can have all of them full, but the way the landscaping goes is you don't actually see the other players really. So that's why this is identified in the Gorsebrook plan for washrooms. So my question is, given that we have built a clubhouse for the tires up at the other place, how do you see this in terms of size and scope and money? Because I think that was also, because of the nature of that field being designated as like the A field for rugby, I think that was one thing. And I think you may have a different kind of scope in mind. So I'm wondering if you could outline that a little bit.
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor. And yeah, I think the TARS Clubhouse provides an amazing precedent and actually an amazing asset for the rugby community. So we appreciate actually that project going forward and HRM's support there. But we do view this as a very different facility. It would be more modest in construction and actually serve a more diverse group of users. Engaging early on with the ball hockey league, my quippy answer is almost like the TARS Clubhouse doesn't help the minor ball hockey league very much. But we really want to actually have a facility there that's right-sized for our community and the other park users. Immediately in terms of project scoping, we're initially visioning it as having 2 changing rooms, not 4, 1 story, not 2. That also improves, obviously, accessibility designs. So some of that right from the start. But I think both the different user group from the south end there at Gorsebrook Park, but then also our different approach to not having it as basically Rugby Nova Scotia's core facility. We're happy to let the TARS and happy to let Graves Oakley serve that goal.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I just really have to commend the work on the presentation. I jotted down a bunch of questions, and as you were going through, no, they've answered that, and that's usual. It was very comprehensive. Your story, I love the emphasis that you have in there on inclusion and incorporating in immigrant communities and, people in the community who, are looking for that sense of belonging in place. And I love your story about the doctor. It actually made me think of that Quebec movie, Seducing Dr. Lewis, where they all pretend to be cricket players in the town to get the doctor to locate there. So that's a lovely story. Life imitating art. And I love the emphasis that, what you're talking about is not, I almost think, in terms of the way you're pitching this, the emphasis is all wrong. This isn't really a clubhouse. This is what you're talking is a multi-user facility, really, right? Where it could be used for the soccer folks. It could be used by the public as a washroom. It could be used by people sledding, right? And, that's exactly the sort of thing we want in our parks. And I think about the washroom strategy, which had some disappointments in it for me when it came forward, but one of the things that is in it that makes so much sense is an emphasis on us as a municipality working with community groups on partnerships, right? Because we could do more together. And so, this is, to me, it sounds like a great idea, and the only kind of question I had was about the Gorsebrook plan, how this all fits together, but, you carried that in your presentation, and, I'm sure as a staff piece and as that comes forward, we can sort that out. If there's no one else on the list, Councillor Mason, who's not actually a member of this committee, sent around that motion, and I think he's looking for someone to move it on his behalf. Yeah.
I didn't send it to everybody.
Oh, sorry.
It's up on the screen.
So I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to, 1, engage with Halifax Rugby on their planned consultation on the proposed project as presented at the January 19th, 2022 Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee presentation, and 2, prepare a staff report assessing the proposal for alignment with municipal plans and priorities, including the January 2022 Goresbrook Park Plan, and identifying possible funding sources.
All right, that was seconded by Councillor Blackburn. Do you have any more on the
I've said
motion?
my bit. I think send it off to staff and we can see what comes of it now.
All right, then we'll go to Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and supporting this wholeheartedly. This is, this is community building. This is a project that will, reach out to so many different groups, and I think, this, obviously, the community's been asking for it, but I just want to note that 2023 in the first bullet point there. I think that should be January 19th, 2023, but other than that, fantastic. I look forward to getting the report back and supporting this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'm just going to take a couple of minutes here too, just to say that through the TARS Rugby Club, and working with Dr. John Gillis, I've gotten to become more familiar with the rugby community. And I have to say that it is everything you say it is. It is one of the most friendly, inviting, welcoming, inclusive communities that I've had the opportunity to get engaged with over the last couple of years. And I think it's a wonderful sport. The clubhouse, the TARS clubhouse, has played a really important role in Spryfield, not just for rugby, but also for supporting the baseball diamonds that are there. There's football, there's soccer, and also maybe one day looking at bringing in some cricket as well, because the cricket and rugby communities have a lot of overlap and connection. Couple of questions about the clubhouse. I know one of the kind of points of contention with the TARS Rugby Club was the fact that it was going to be licensed. It was a licensed facility, and I wondered if there's been any discussion about that at this facility. And I also just want to mention about the bathrooms. I mean, for Halifax, for HRM, what we got out of that deal were brand new public bathrooms. Prior to that, we had outhouses, a single outhouse in a cage in the middle of the field. And it was like one of the most mortifying experiences to have to use the washroom if you're at those playing fields. So, 100%, I think the washrooms are a huge sell, and it worked out to be a very financially beneficial partnership with HRM in providing accessible, new, proper washroom facilities. So I think that's definitely, a highlight in this, in reaching our washroom facility goals. But back to the licensing, any thoughts about that?
Certainly. As a community space, not even just actually for kind of rugby uses, we did envision a potentially licensed space. However, obviously, without kind of consulting the community in depth yet, we haven't kind of established that as a core kind of piece of the plan. We'd want to make sure that through other kind of engagements, both with the other athletic associations of the park, but obviously the residents as well, to understand the implications there. Obviously, there is a precedent in that neighborhood. St. Mary's University's Goresbrook Pub is probably just as close to those houses as kind of anything on the sports field, but we'd certainly want to respect all of the users of the park. So as of now, I'd say unsure, but pending public consultation, I think our membership would like to see it being an established social space.
I also, if I may, I also think other potential uses, like you think about something like the St. Mary's Boat Club and some of the uses that it has that are related to it being licensed or licensable. I don't know if it's licensed for special events or ongoing. That that might speak to the sustainability piece. But again, that's all work yet to be done as we engage with staff. We've also talked about how, anticipating neighbors' concerns potentially about a licensed space, the kinds of things that we could do both architecturally and in terms of within the covenants of the uses of the space to protect, to make sure that that respect for the neighborhood is maintained. But none of that has been defined. It's just we've anticipated some of it, and we're ready to roll up our sleeves and start working on it.
Great. The concerns in the community, so far, everything has gone very well, and I do realize how important the socialization aspect is to the rugby community. It's like it goes hand in hand, as my good friend from New Zealand gave me a very in-depth briefing on the rugby culture when I was looking at TARS. So anyway, we'd like to see how that proceeds, and I'm glad there'll be the consultation process that will, ask those important questions. All right, any call for the question? All those in favor? Contrary-minded? That motion passes. Thank you so much for coming in today. That was a great presentation and great discussion. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with the agenda here. Next on the agenda, we have information items brought forward. There are none. Reports, none. Members of Standing Committee, none. Motions, none. In camera, none. Added items. There were none. Notices of motion. Anybody have a notice of motion? No? Okay. Public participation? None. Do I have to call 3 times? That's a public hearing, I think, where you have to call 3 times. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, I think. You think we're safe? Okay. The date of next meeting is February 16th, 2023. And with that, I'll take a motion. Oh, yes. Okay, there's our motion to adjourn.